What's going on, everybody? Nick DiVirgilio here. Welcome back to Groovy Thursdays. I picked a super energetic groove for this week's Groovy Thursdays hang. We're at groove number 34. The song is called Drunkship of Lanterns from the band the Mars Volta from their record, this is a mouthful, Deloused in the Comatorium. Let's go. I'll admit here that I kind of forgot about this band, the Mars Volta, for a little while. I don't know why, because when this record came out particularly, in around 2003, man, I was a fan immediately. I really got into them kind of heavily because they were heavy and fusion-y and definitely proggy in a heavier sort of way and experimental and just energetic. And then some of the musicianship all throughout the band is incredible. The drummer on this record is named Jon Theodor. And man, can this guy play. He's now in the band Queens of the Stone Age, so he's still playing and still going strong. But man, the energy level back in the day was just off the charts. There's some amazing YouTube footage of the Mars Volta playing back around this time, a couple years later, you know, in this period, and they were just on fire. I was listening to music on Spotify one day, and you know how they have the pre-programmed playlist depending on the music you like? Well, I was listening to one of those playlists, and the Mars Volta came on, and it re-triggered all the old memories and got me back into this band again. And I'm glad it did, because it's just super fun to hear and a great study. Man, Jon's drumming on this record is off the hook. So, with all that being said, let's get into this groove. First thing, this groove is in 4/4 time, so there's no odd time signatures to worry about here. It's all straight time. The tempo changes. I don't know how they recorded this record back in the day, if they did it in sections or if it was just live. It could very well just been going for it with no click at all. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. The section of the song that I'm using for this week's groove starts at about 4 minutes and 20 seconds into the song. This particular groove and pattern happens earlier in the tune, but at 4 minutes and 20 seconds, it's extended. And it goes from one style to the next, and that's kind of how I did it in this week's groove. There's 3 ways of playing this groove, and each is broken into a 4-bar phrase. Makes it a little bit easier to digest. That's kind of how they did it on the record. It goes from one to the next, and then once they get into the last section, that's the extended long one, and the song keeps going from there. But for this demonstration, each phrase is 4 bars long, so then you can repeat it and just work on one thing at a time if you want to. As far as the tempo of this groove is concerned, I have it clocked at 147 BPM. But on the record, when I was trying to map it all out, the first phrase is at about 160. And then the second phrase, it slows down to about 154 or so. And by the end of the second phrase, it's around 151. And then when it gets into the more just grooving, bashing part, it's at about 147. And maybe when they recorded the song, it was all just flowing through them. The energy was, they were live in the room maybe and just going for it. So it naturally slowed down a little bit. I'll tell you, when you get into that last section, it's kind of nice that it slows down a little bit, because even though there is definitely some finesse in this groove, it's all about just going for it full tilt. So you got to hit the drums hard and you got to be playing, and it gets tiring, especially in the right foot. For me, it was, at least, you know, because there's a lot of stuff going on and you got to hit hard and just kind of, you feel it in your muscles and everything like that. It's really great for that kind of thing. And Jon Theodor, I got to give it up to this guy, because his energy didn't waver at all. If you watch some of the great YouTube footage of these guys playing this tune live, you know, there's no laying back. They are all going for it, and Jon is just bashing through the whole thing in such a great way. So he was in great shape. He had the ability to play that hard for that long with that much gusto, you know. So it's a good practice to see if you could do that. It's really, it'll work your muscles, it'll work your technique, all of those things. Okay, into the first phrase. Really, it's just 1 bar long, repeated 4 times. So let's work on the first bar. Everything is based around the guitar riff and the rhythm that is the guitar riff. That rhythm is this, and you can see it in the first bar. I'll clap it out and sing it for you, and we'll talk it through as well. Here's the pulse, and I'll quickly sing out the main rhythm here. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. 1 taka 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 ta. 1 taka 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 ta. It's pretty simple when it's stripped down like that. The very first beat is an 8th note rest, and then you start on the and playing all the 16th notes until beat number 4, where you basically stop. So 1 and a 2E and a 3E and a 4. 1 and a 2E and a 3E and a 4. Stripped down like that, it's not too hard. Now to bring it to the drum set, he's playing a pattern between the snare and the kick drum. And looking at it, it's really not that hard. You have a double on the snare and a double on the kick. Then a single on the snare and a single on the kick. Then another double on the snare and another double on the kick, and then the downbeat of beat 4. If you look at it like that, it's just a pattern between your hands and feet that could easily be a drum fill. You know, you could practice this as coordination between your hands and your feet, or play it like a groove like this. Now, let's sing out this drum rhythm. It's pretty much the same as the one I sang just a second ago, but I'll try and mouth the snare and the kick drum sounds differently with my voice. Here we go. Here's our pulse. Let's do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, teka tuku teko teka tuku tat. 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 Okay, so that's the main rhythm. The way I'm doing the sticking here is really simple. The first double on the snare is just right, left. Then you have the double on the kick. Then there's a single snare hit, then a single kick, and then a double on the snare. I'm doing right, left, and then the double on the kick. If you're left-handed, obviously just turn it around. And if you need to do it some other way, that's fine too. One thing I want to mention here is that this is all done with a single kick drum. You could totally do this with this double pedal if you can kind of get the coordination down. I think it makes it a little bit harder, actually, to put a double pedal in here. I mean, you just have to practice it like that if you want to, but doing it with a single pedal really works your right foot a lot. It's a good thing. One last thing to throw in about this first chunk, these first 4 bars, is that he puts a hi-hat foot on beat 1 of every bar. It adds one little touch of independence between your feet and your hands, and one little extra thing that makes it a little bit more difficult. And from listening to the song as closely as I could, I don't hear the hi-hat playing through the rest of the bar. Like he's not keeping time with the hi-hat. He's only playing it on beat 1 with the closed foot, the chick sound. Then, getting into the second set of 4 bars. At the end of bar 4, starting on beat 4, you're going to play all 4 16th notes. First 3 are on the snare drum. The 4th one is on your rack tom. This is the little fill getting you into this next section. So it's 4E and on your rack tom, and then beat 1 of the next section is on your floor tom. That's taking the place of that hi-hat. That's the last time you have to do this particular thing. As you get into bars 2, 3, and 4 of this second section, you don't have the stop on beat 1 with the floor tom or the hi-hat. Let's talk about the kick drum accents that are part of this second section, because it's all based around that, which is all based around the guitar rhythm, right? It's all part of the same thing. Let's talk through that. You have a kick drum accent on 1 and, then on 2E, and then right on 3. Then the rest of the bar is pretty much a snare drum fill. Let's sing out that rhythm real quick. Here's the pulse. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 2 and 3. And 2 and 3. And 2 and 3. See? Your crash cymbal follows your kick drum. You play the exact same accent with your crash cymbal. And also, the cool thing here is that every 16th note is played. There's not extra stuff thrown in here. He fills up the whole bar. So, in between the accents with your crash and your kick drum, you're filling up the space, basically. And where those accents lay, turn them into like 3-note chunks. Okay? So starting on the and of 1, it's your first 3-note chunk. It's kick, snare, snare. Then starting on the E of 2, it's another kick, snare, snare. And then right on beat 3, kick, snare, snare. So if you look at it like that, it simplifies it a little bit. Then the snare fill that's at the end of each bar, it's the same each time, so it simplifies it a little bit. You just have to worry about playing the accents correctly, so it really feels like this groove. The first accent in the snare fill starts on 3E and the last 16th note, then the downbeat of beat 4. Then there's one little ghost note on the second 16th note of beat 4, and then 2 more accents. And finally, to round it all out, since you're not playing that stop with the floor tom or the hi-hat on beat 1, when you get around to beat 1 again in this second section, you play 2 more accents on the first 2 16th notes of beat 1, giving you a 4-note chunk at the end of each bar into the beginning of the next bar. It sounds more difficult than it is. Again, you're filling in all of the 16th notes. As long as you have those kick drum and crash accents on those spots, then fill in the rest with the right accent spots, you'll hear it. And it just makes it so it flows from the end of one bar and into the next. The easiest way I find to vocalize this particular thing is just to vocalize the accents, because it's a lot to get out of your mouth quickly. But if you do that, it's not too hard. So let's try together. Here we go. Here's our pulse, and I'll sing out the kick drum and the snare drum accents, okay? And we're gonna go from bar to bar to bar. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Kata taka taka kata taka taka kata taka taka kata taka taka. If you think of it like that, once you get this into your hands, it's not as difficult as, trying to talk about it. Just figure out those accents, play it really slowly if you have to, and then you're off to the races. Then we get into the third section. When you get here, it's just full on rage time. It's bashing, backbeat, and it's just energetic as you can possibly be. So when you practice this groove at home, hopefully your spouse won't mind, your neighbors won't mind, your family won't mind that you are beating the ever-living life out of your drums. Drums are meant to be hit. You don't always have to hit them hard, but when you play this particular groove, you need to hit them really hard. You're not gonna hurt anything. You're not gonna break anything unless you have a really thin cymbal. Make sure maybe you're not playing like some sort of really thin jazz cymbal, because then you might crack it, but it might feel good to crack a cymbal. I don't know. This is one of those grooves where you play hard and it feels good. Don't worry about the volume. It's meant to be this. Okay, all that said, let's get to this last section and then we're done with this video today. The accents with the kick and the crash that make up the second set of 4 bars are the same accents that are in these 4 bars and then continue on into the song. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, that kind of thing is the exact same thing that happens here, but he's filling in some more notes. In your crash cymbal hand, whichever hand you're playing it with, you go to just playing quarter notes on the crash cymbal, just bashing. You play 2 and 4, basic backbeat with your snare drum hand, but you also have a couple other hits in there as well, and I'll get to those in just a second. And then you have those accents on the kick drum. To go through this part of the groove, let's just concentrate on bar number 4, the last bar of my transcription, because once you get here, and if you're listening to the tune, he plays it the same way all the way through. I think in my demonstration, I may have simplified a bar here or there, because I gotta tell you, it takes a lot to keep this energy level this high at that tempo going and playing it the exact same way. When I heard this stuff live, when I watched those YouTube videos, they're doing it, they're not stopping. Maybe when they recorded the song, they punched in a bar here or there, I don't know. It's a hard thing to play and it's a hard thing to keep going. Those doubles in your right foot become tough to do for an extended period of time at this tempo, at that energy level. Just saying. Okay, let's check out the last bar of the transcription and go through this groove. Again, quarter notes in your crash cymbal hand. You have a snare drum right on B2. Then there's 2 in-between snare drums, and these in-between snare drums are not ghost notes. You play these with the same velocity as your backbeats. So the second snare drum is on 2E and last 16th note of beat 2, and then 3E, second 16th note of beat 3, and then right on beat 4. Again, all at the same, just monster energy level. The kick drum starts on the and of beat 1 with 2 16th notes, 1 and a, then you have the snare on 2. There's a kick drum immediately following that snare drum on 2E. There's a kick drum right on beat 3, and then 2 kick drums on 3E and 3E and Let's sing out this pattern slowly. When you sing it slowly, it's not that difficult to internalize and feel and hear. So here we go. Here's the pulse, nice and slow for this, and we're gonna sing the kick and snare pattern. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Duku taku, katu katu kuta. 1, duku taku, katu katu kuta. 1, duku taku, katu katu kuta. 1, duku taku, katu katu kuta. This particular pattern that I just vocalized, and that's here in the transcription, is something I'm sure if you played any sort of typical rock beat you've played before. It's not that crazy of a beat itself. Again, it's the energy level and the tempo and just the gusto you're giving it all. Think of it as a regular old rock beat, and then just break it into little chunks and slow it down if you have to, like with anything else, right? Quarter notes in your main hand, 2 and 4 in your snare, and just do the first little chunk first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Kick, snare kick. 3, 4, 1, 2, gaku. 3, 4. That kind of thing, and then bring in the second chunk. In closing here, if you want to repeat these 12 bars and make a loop out of it when you're practicing, a way to do it is at the end of the 12th bar, on the very last note, that last backbeat on beat 4, stop right there, and then immediately follow that with that hi-hat chick on beat 1 of the first bar. So you stop on beat 4, and you have a hi-hat chick on beat 1 immediately following. If you can get that coordination down, you can repeat these 12 bars as a loop, and it's a lot of fun to do. And there you have it, groove number 34 in our Groovy Thursdays hang. The song Drunkship of Lanterns from the Mars Volta, the record Deloused in the Comatorium. The original drummer is Jon Theodor. This is a super fun, super energetic groove that is meant to be played hard and loud. Give it your all when you do this groove. It's a great workout. It's a great workout for your breathing, your energy, your muscles, all of it. Go for it when you play this groove. If you like what's going on here at Groovy Thursdays, I ask that you like this video, share it with all your friends, subscribe to the channel, bring on questions, comments, and suggestions for future grooves, and we'll see you next week, everybody, for groove number 35. Cheers.